Hey guys, SimCoder here, and today we'll finally start coding on our Instagram app. So in this first lesson, all that we are going to do is take care of the Auth system. We are going to use Firebase for it, and it is going to be extremely simple because you only need one function in order to get Firebase Auth to create an account and to sign into an account. So most of the work will be taking care of routes and stuff like that, taking care of the Firebase configuration, but yeah, it should be pretty straightforward, so let's do it. If the video is going a little too slow for you, then feel free to change the speed of the video in the video settings. Okay, so let's get started, and the first thing that I'm going to do is to open up the Visual Studio Code with the project. I changed into the dark theme because I made a poll and it seems like most of you guys prefer the dark theme. So if you have any problems with it, let me know down in the comment section. I'll try my best to conciliate the both worlds, both the light theme and the dark theme. So in the meantime, I'm going to come in here, going into our folder, and I'm going to start the Expo project just like we learned in the previous lesson. So to do that, all I'm going to do is Expo start -c. The -c flag, the C flag, better yet, we'll just clear cache and make sure everything runs smoothly from the beginning. So I always prefer to run it like that. And here we are. We are in the main page of Expo, and now we are able to run in a web browser. So in these lessons, I'm going to actually only develop in the web browser. It is just easier to debug and do all of that. So that's why I'm choosing to do it only on web, but you could run it on your device, and you should run it on your device without any issues. I'm going to make this a tiny bit bigger. Okay, we have the first page in here, but now what we want to do is take care of the routes. So in React Native, it works pretty similar to React with some differences. You can navigate to different pages, different components, different functions, and you can do that pretty easily using some React Native specific resources. So in our case, we'll be using a package called React Navigation. And let me just pick it up in here. And the package is this one. It takes care of the routes for you, so you don't have to deal with a lot of boilerplate stuff. It is really simple. It has some really cool features, so this is what we are going to use. Okay, so in order to install it, all you have to do is run this command, npm install @React Navigation native. And I'm going to close Expo, run this inside the root folder of Expo, and after it is done, I'm going to relaunch Expo. Okay, run in web browser. Okay, so now we are set and done. Now you can start actually writing some code using React Navigation. So you have all of the documentation in here. It is pretty straightforward. And what it says in the beginning and what you must always do in order to use React Navigation as a route, you have to import navigation container from React Navigation native. So I'm going to add it up top in here in the app.js because this is the main file, and it is the file that will contain all of the routes. And then we must have a navigation container, and this navigation container will be the parent tag for every single route. So I'm going to remove this view. It isn't needed anymore. I'm going to remove all of this. I'm even going to remove the style sheet. Okay. Coming in here, I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to create a stack navigator. So this stack navigator will be our screens, our routes, and it will be our tag for each and every single route. You'll understand that better in a second. So let's say create stack navigator. Open parentheses, and that's it. So now in order to add a route, we must first have components in order to receive those parameters and to receive everything. So in the Auth system, we'll have 3 routes. We'll have the landing page where the user can choose between the login and the registration page, and then we'll have the login and the registration page. So I'm going to create a folder called components, and this folder will contain all of the components used throughout this lesson. Then I'm going to create yet another folder called Auth, and then inside this folder I'm going to create the landing page. So I'm going to call it just landing.js. And now, in order to create a component, I'm going to make use of one plugin from Visual Studio Code. If you are using another code editor, you'll probably have to install it from other places. But in Visual Studio Code, all you have to do is go into extensions, and you are free to enter like React, and this package will appear. Whoops, that's not it. Okay, so what this package allows you to do is to write code snippets, like, for example, imp, and it will write this down for you. So it makes it a lot faster to do stuff, and you don't have to remember boilerplate code. You can simply type what you know it is, the prefix, and then it will be created for you, which is really cool. Okay, so for the landing page, and after you have this package installed, I'm going to say RCF. This will create a React function component, and as you can see, it created everything that we need, so it is really cool. Now, I'm going to come in here and import some text, just to display to the user that the page is still loading. So, in order to do this, open curly brackets, text from React Native. Remember, we aren't using plain HTML, we are using JSX, and it is specific to React Native. So make sure you use tags that are from React Native. We are also going to use Vue. Vue acts as like a replacement for div, because this package that we just installed is for React, and because it is for React, it is using HTML tags, but we need to use Vue instead of div. So I'm going to replace it. Okay, and I'm going to add some styling to it. In this case, it will be style, open 2 curly brackets, and I'm going to say flex 1 and justify content center. This will make sure that wherever elements are inside this view will be in the middle of the screen, and it will occupy the entire screen, so we make sure that everything is as it should be in the center of the screen, as any landing page will be. Okay, so next I'm going to add the buttons to go either to register or the login page. And to add the buttons, all you have to do is add the button inside here. I'm going to make it a self-closing tag, just make everything tighter and cleaner. I'm going to give it a title. This is how you use the buttons in React Native, by the way. And I'm going to say register. And then, in order to change page into a different route, what you have to do is say onPress equals to curly brackets and open parentheses. Close that up. Oops. There you go. Then our function, and inside here we'll use some navigation specific stuff from what we passed along, what we will pass along inside this navigation container. So in this landing, it will receive a prop. A prop is just an argument. You can think of it like that. It will be navigation. This navigation will give us the access to the router or the navigation container inside here. and we'll be able to change the route where we are at the moment using this navigation. So navigation.navigate, and now we pass along the name of the route that we want to go to. In this case, it will be called register. It isn't called that yet, but it will in a second. Then we'll just double that up. I'm going to close this up. Double that up and change the name to login, because obviously then we want to go to the login. Okay? So now, in order to add this function component to our app.js route, what we have to do is to, first of all, import it. So to import it, I'm going to say landing screen from open quotes, and then say components of landing. And now we can go inside the navigation container and say, first of all, that our stack.navigator initial route name is equal to home, or better yet, landing. Let's keep everything coherent. And this will tell this navigation container, that the first route that it must go to when this app.js is launched will be the landing route. However, we don't have any landing routes inside here, so that's what we are going to do next. We're going to say stack.screen, and we'll set the name of these routes, which will be landing. I'm going to close that up. Then we say which component will be called upon when this route is called, and in this case it is landing screen, not this, landing screen. And then I'm going to add some options. Options are just customizations that you can do to each and every single screen. In this case, I don't want to show the nav bar that appears up top, or better yet, the header. That's how they are called in React Native. So we are going to pass along header shown, and we are going to set it to false in the options. That's it. So now I'm going to go into our localhost and see what comes up. We see that create stack navigator is not defined. And this is because I forgot to import a package. So I'm going to double up on the navigation container, and I'm going to say React stack navigator inside here. And then at the end, instead of native, it will be stack. So now coming in here, module can't be resolved. And this is because we must actually install React navigation /stack. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close up our Expo project. I'm going to say npm install @React navigation /stack. So run it. After it completes the installation process, simply start up Expo again. Let's do that. And there we go. After some time, it will load up the page in the home route. So now we are fully ready to start programming the login and registration. The first thing that I'm going to do is to actually just create the components. And this time, instead of a function, I'm actually going to create a component, because remember, a function is stateless and a component is stateful. So this means that you are able to store a state within a component, but which you are not to when using a function. And for the case of login using Firebase, it is useful to have a component. It is easier in my opinion, so I'm going to go with a component. There aren't a lot of drawbacks to using a component. It is a bit heavier, but the loading times are marginally different, so don't worry about that. So The first page that we are going to create is a register.js. This is because you need to register a user in order to log in with it. So I'm going to call up RCE using the plugin that we are using at the moment, and it will create a component for us. Now I'm going to import a series of components that we must use in order to add a form, a registration form, and the first of which will be view, then button, which we already use, and a new one, which is the text inputs. This is just a text input for you to write on, so nothing really special. This is from React Native again, and we are ready to start coding. So in this case, we'll be needing a constructor because we'll need to initialize these components. And the constructor is the first function to be called whenever a component is created. So constructor, pass along props, open parentheses, and in here I'm going to say super props. Okay? Now we can start writing this component specific code, which is the states, and we are able to choose what we'll need in order to get this up and running. So this.states, open curly brackets, and in order to use this component, we'll be needing an email, and you'll see why we need to do this in a second. Then you'll need a password. We are basically just deciding what the user will need in order to complete the registration. Then we'll need a name. And for the moment, I'm going to leave it like this. Our users, in order to register, will need these parameters to enter these parameters in order to register. Okay, now coming into render, which is the function that's called anytime a state component changes or the component loads. So we are able to come in here and say, first of all, we must engulf the return with view. So view. And now I'm going to place the text inputs. It is a self-closing brackets. We don't need to have anything inside of it. And now I'm going to say that the placeholder for these text inputs, and the placeholder is the grayed out text that appears whenever you load a component or that the text input is empty, will be name. And then I'm going to say on change text equals to open curly brackets, open parentheses, name, arrow function, this.set state name. Okay, so why do we need this on change text? So text input won't change anything by itself. We wouldn't be able to access this text input on a submit button click, so it would be kind of useful because we wouldn't know what's inside of it. So the only way of combating this, or the better way of combating this, is to add an onChange text function, which will be called whenever the user makes a change within the input. And whenever a user makes a change within an input, we get the name, which is a text that's inside of the input. And then we update the state using the this.setState function, which if you are familiar with React, this would come easily. And we update the name function with this name. This way of doing things is similar to doing it, for example, name, 2 points name, or better yet, we must engulf this in parentheses. This is the same as just having a name. JavaScript automatically assumes that the name of the argument that you are passing along is the same name as the variable that you want to update, which is really cool. So this is why we need onChange text. So now that we have a name, I'm going to create two more, which will be the email and the password. I'm going to change also the variables names, password, and I'm going to add one thing to the text input of the password. So I want to make it secure, so I want the password to be obfuscated whenever the user types it in. And in order to achieve this, and you could see it from the text input documentation, it is really quite good, is to say secure text entry equals to open curly brackets true. This will obfuscate the text input of the password. Okay, so now all you have left to do is to add the button, and again it will be a self-closing tag, and in this case on press you'll be calling a function which will take care of the registration. Open curly brackets, open parentheses, arrow function, again just as always, and then let's say this dot on sign up, open parentheses, and this isn't a function that we have created yet. But before getting to it, I'm going to say the title, and which will be equal to sign up. Okay, so now in order to create this function, I'm going to come up top and simply add it. However, in onSignup, I want to be able to access all of the state variables. And in order to do this, we must bind the onSignup function to the this variable. This has to do with how a component is structured. So this is something that you must always do in order to access the this variable, which is the global variable, the components variable, to a function that you create inside of the component. So in order to do this, all you have to do is this dot on signup equals to this dot on signup dot bind this. Seems confusing at first, but it is something that you get used to quite fast. Okay, so for now, I'm going to stop with the coding and I'm going to take care of the Firebase configuration. So I'm going to go into my Firebase dashboard and I'm going to add a project. It will be Instagram demo, dev. Continue, use the default accounts and create project. It will take some time, but I'll be back as soon as it ends. Okay, so after it is done doing its thing, I'm going to hit continue and it will launch the Firebase dashboard for your project. So the first thing that we are going to do is to come into authentication and I'm going to enable the sign-in method. For this project, we'll be using email and password, so I'm going to enable it. And that's it. You don't need to do anything else within the authentication. But coming back to the initial page, I'm going to add the web app. And for that, you need to click the HTML tags that appear in here and say the name of the project, which is in this case, it will be Instagram, and register app. Give it some time. Okay, after it has done loading, I'm going to continue to dashboard and I'm going to go into the settings of our web app. Okay, so now you get this config file. It is the file that will give you access to the Firebase functions in your project. So it is what we'll input into our project. You'll have one that's unique to you and everyone will have one that's unique to them. Okay, so now I'm going to close up Expo once again. I'm going to clear this up because we need to install Firebase. In Expo, you get this page regarding Firebase. And if you search Expo Firebase, this will appear. And they show you how to install Firebase and how to set it up. So in order to install it, you must run expo install Firebase. Expo install is the same as npm install. As you can see, it even says it there. And okay, so it has completed installing. So now we are ready to start Expo once again. Give it some time and it will start up. So in the meantime, I'm going to minimize all of the pages, and I'm going to come into VS Code and jump into app. So we are going to initialize Firebase. This means adding our specific unique key and starting up everything that's needed in order to use Firebase. So first of all, I'm going to import asterisk, which means all, from Firebase, better yet, as Firebase, from open quotes Firebase. Okay, this will import all of the functions, packages, whatever that are inside Firebase, and we'll be able to access them all. Okay, then I'm going to go into our Firebase dashboard, and I'm going to copy the Firebase config. Okay, and I'm going to simply paste it inside of here. And I'm going to actually place it below the imports, or better yet, above the imports. Okay, I'm going to place it here. Remember, these could be in environmental variables, and it should be if you were deploying it to production, but because this is a tutorial, I'm going to keep it as simple as possible and keep the API keys open for anyone to see. Obviously, I'm going to delete this project as soon as it is uploaded, so people can't abuse the system. But yeah, you are free to use it. Remember, when you want to put it for production, use environment variables in order to hide them. Okay, so now in order to initialize our Firebase project, what we must do first is do firebase.apps.length equal to 0. This if makes sure that we are not running any Firebase instance at the moment. Because if you try to run initialize a Firebase app while one is already initialized, then the app will crash. So do this simple check, just make sure everything runs smoothly, and then say firebase.initialize app Firebase config. And that's it, we have Firebase initialized. Now we are able to go into register and take care of the on sign up. This is really simple, and you'll see how it is in a second. First things first, we must import Firebase from Firebase, and this will import every single package. We don't need to worry about anything else. And on sign up, I'm going to first of all grab all of the variables that are in the states variable, and we do this by saying const. We can use const because we are not going to alter them, and say email between curly brackets, passwords, and name. And these variables, we can say that are equal to these.state. One of the cool things about JavaScript is that you can make small optimizations like this, which will make the code cleaner. If you place variables inside curly brackets, and those variables are inside another variable, then you can simply grab them by doing this instead of saying this.state.email or this.state.password. You can do it straight like this. Okay, I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to do call the registration function, which is firebase.auth open curly bracket, open parentheses, better yet, say create user with email and passwords, and the parameters that this function accepts are email and password. We are not using the name yet, but we will in a second. Dot creates user. Okay, I'm going to do that, just make sure the English is correct. And we are going to say then, which is our callback function. Remember, this is asynchronous, so the code, when you call this function, will continue without any problems. But then when we get a response from the Firebase server, this then will be triggered. Results, open our function. And for the time being, I'm just going to print a console log with the results. And I'm also going to add the catch. The catch is called if something goes bad, if the server returns a 500 error, for example, this will be called. So console log error, and now we'll be able to see how everything works out. Okay, so I'm going to jump into our web browser and run in the web browser. After it is done loading, I'm going to come into register and nothing happens. This is because we haven't added our screen yet. So coming back into app.js, I'm going to add the register screen. I'm going to double up on the landing screen and simply change the name to register. And the header can be shown for these parts. Okay, then coming back.
1 hour later.
Okay, so I launched the project, but there was one problem, which was that the stack screen wasn't being loaded. And this was in part because I forgot to add the screen in front of register in here. So make sure that these two names match. And the other problem was because we must install 3 more packages in order for React Native to React Navigation to work. The first of which is npm I, and you can simply run these commands, npm I React Native screens. The second of which is add React Native community / masked view, and the third one is React Native gesture handler. Feel free to pause this video. I'll add these npm installs below so that you can even install them straight up in the beginning of the lesson without any problems. But that should do the trick. So now I'm going to run expo start -c, and I'm going to run this in the web browser. Give it a second. Okay, so now when we are here, we are able to go into register. And in here we get the names, passwords, everything that we've added in our register.js. So now I'm going to click on sign up, and as you can see, an error appears. The email address is badly formatted. This is because the catch was triggered. An error from Firebase was sent to us because we are sending empty parameters. However, if we do test@gmail.com, that's the email, the name, so I'm going to change this into test. Then the email will be test@gmail.com, and then the password will be 123456, and sign up. Then operation type sign in. Everything seems to be to have gone through nicely. So I'm going to go into our Firebase dashboard, going to users, and test@gmail.com appears. This means that the user was signed up successfully. Okay, so now we are able to do the login, and we are able to save the name and the email to the Firestore, which is the database that we'll be using. So in order to create the login, I'm going to go into our folders, Auth folder, add a new file called login.js, add it here, and I'm simply going to change the name of register to login, because the logic is basically the same. But we won't have a name, and instead of sign in, it will be instead of sign up, it will be sign in. Okay, and then the function that we'll be using isn't create user with email and password. It will be sign in with email and password. Okay, this will sign in the user using the email and password that's passed along to it. We won't need a name, so I'm going to remove it from the state. Okay, and in the end, export default isn't registered, will be login. And that's it, we are basically done. Now what we are going to do is to add a Firebase Auth listener to check for the user to see when the user is logged in or not. To do this, I'm going to change the app.js into a component instead of a function. So for that, I'm going to call it RCE. Going to remove this and add comma components in between curly brackets in the React imports. Then I'm going to move all of this inside of the render function. Remember, this is the function that's called whenever something changes or the state is altered. I'm going to add a constructor which will pass along props, then super props, just like we did for the register and login. And I'm going to add the state. In the state, we'll just have a loaded variable. So loaded equals to false. And I'm going to add a component did mount. The component did mount is part of the lifecycle of React. You have a bunch: component did mount, component did amount, the component did update, and these are called in specific life moments of our React component. So component did mount is called whenever the component actually mounts and will render next. So in these components, what we'll do is say firebase.auth on auth state changed. This will be listening for auth changes so that we are able to show a loading screen while the auth is still loading, and then actually show the navigation container once the user has loaded. So arrow function, curly brackets, and in here we'll say if not user, which means that the user hasn't loaded and isn't logged in, we are going to say this.setState equals to, first of all, logged in, which is a variable that we'll be adding next, equals to false, but loaded is equal to true because we already know the state of the user now. However, if the user is not null, then we'll say else this.setState logged in true because the user is not undefined or null or wherever, and loaded is equal to true. This means that we can show a navigation container. So here I'm going to say const logged in and loaded. This will be from the this.states. Okay, and I'm going to say if not loaded, then I'll be showing a view with a text inside of it. So import view and text from React Native. Okay. And we are able to do this because now I'm going to return something instead of the navigation container. So it will override this return, and this return will never be called as long as loaded is equal to false. And now I'm simply going to say view, then text, and say loading. Okay. And I want to show this in the middle, so I'm going to actually go into landing and grab the style of the parent view, add this here, and we are done. Now, if we go back inside of here and reload the page, you'll see that loading appears. Loading appears again because the auth state still hasn't been fetched and the app isn't sure of the state of the user. But once it loads, then we are able to access register. Okay, and we are able to do some other cool stuff like if not logged in, then show this, and finally if the user is already logged in, then I'm going to return just some placeholder for the time being saying user is logged in. And if I come in here, loading, user is logged in, because the user is already logged in because we just registered the user. Okay, so now I'm going to go into register. Okay, so now we are basically done. We still haven't added the user to Firestore, but the lesson is getting kind of long, so I'm going to end it here. In the next lesson, we'll be adding the user to Firestore, to our database, in order for us to access more data, because currently the data that we have on the user is quite limited. We weren't even able to save the name of the user, so we'll be using Firestore for all of that. In the next lesson, we'll probably end the Auth system by saving the data of the user to the database and adding an option to log out of the application. We'll probably also start on the main navigation of the app, which contains the feed, the add button, the profile, stuff like that. We'll just take care of the skeleton of the app so you can get an idea of what it will look like. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if this video was useful to you. So that's all for today. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow. Ciao!